All right, everybody, thanks for coming. We're going to be talking about licensing Esri PaaS SaaS software, common patterns and architectures. I'm Kelly Holleran, a Senior Solutions Engineer on our partner team.
And I'm Jay Rajmohan. I'm a system architect in the same team.
For the agenda, we're going to break it down to a few different sections. We're going to start by going through an overview of the ArcGIS system. Then we'll go through some technical and business considerations with Esri PaaS, Esri SaaS, and Esri software, which is going to include both desktop and server. Then we'll go through a quick summary of just what we talked about, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, we'll take those at the end.
All right, so Kelly and myself, we work with a lot of Esri partners, right? Every single time we get a question, we kind of start with, what is the workflow, right? What is the problem we are trying to solve? And then from there, we start with the capabilities. And from the capabilities, we kind of come into the products that are required to solve that or help with that workflow. That is one thread. Another thread is the workflow or the solution that's being built. Who is going to use that? Is that going to be an Esri customer, or is it going to be somebody new? So that decides how you license it. So then we work with the partners to bring the technology and the licensing together. That's the foundation on how which we are going to talk through the session to help you decide which product to use and how to license it. This morning at the plenary, you heard about the well-architected framework website we have. So this is my summary version of it, the various patterns. As Viet was telling in the plenary, many teams within Esri, services, product, business development, many teams work together to understand and categorize the various workflows. How do you kind of put them into different patterns? And these are the 8 patterns they came up with, which pretty much fits all of that. And as Viet said, if there is anything that we are missing, help us out, we'll update it. But this is where we are today. But diving deeper on those patterns, the question is what is the purpose of the system, right? The problem that we are trying to solve, how does it help somebody? Who will use it? What is the persona of the user? Not necessarily a customer or non-customer kind of thing, but what is the role of the user? Is that an executive looking at a report kind of a situation or a dashboard? Or is it somebody editing some data at their desktop, at their desk? And how will they use it? Again, desktop, field, web. Those are the kind of key components that we need to ask. So based on that, we have to kind of jump into the implementation information, right? What kind of tools and capabilities are specific to those workflows? Should it be a independent system? Should it be, can it reuse existing systems, or does it require integration with external systems? Those are the aspects that will kind of come into the considerations when we decide, hey, do you want to use only the PaaS capabilities, or you are good with the SaaS, or do you want to host it yourself, or work with the server technology? So those are all the high level. This is our version of a level deeper on that, right? So you start with the geospatial capability, whether you work with the location services, you want to do advanced analytics, what kind of thing. And then what kind of data are you going to work with? Whether it's vector, raster, real time, or any of those data that is supported or not supported either, you can still plug in. Where does the data live? That's an exceptionally important point as well. Is it something that can be hosted in ArcGIS, or is it something that has to be on a server-side location or in the cloud where we have to tap into that? So with that, go into the infrastructure, can it be the SaaS, PaaS, or it has to be hosted? In many cases, there are considerations that is beyond all of this, like data sovereignty, right? Like, in Europe, you have to have, in many cases, the data has to be hosted within the European Union region. It cannot be in the US. So in there, ArcGIS Online still supports local data hosting, but there could be stricter scenarios where online may not suffice. They may have to host it through our server technology. And also the SLA, ArcGIS and PaaS, we offer predefined SLA for our offerings, but there could be scenarios where you need an improved availability. So these are all the various variables that kind of come into the requirements. Then comes the people part of it, right? Do you have the skills to do that? Is it easier to kind of host it leveraging our PaaS or SaaS? Or do you have the people to host it, or do you need a partner to host it or something? These are all the business side of the equation. So those are all the considerations we would do at a high level. And with that, jumping into ArcGIS, the products. So ArcGIS, the way I see it is we have a bunch of core capabilities or libraries that they build, and then that is manifested in many different ways. If the location services only aspect of is our ArcGIS platform, which is the PaaS offering. The SaaS offering is online, ArcGIS Online. If it's a enterprise server-side technology, it's ArcGIS Enterprise. The same set of libraries manifested as a desktop application is ArcGIS Pro. They all have some additional capabilities added to those, but at the core, it's the same set of libraries that's working behind the scenes. So you saw in plenary this morning, the Arcade and all the Python, all the capabilities they were talking how it works in various environments. It's all because it's the same set of libraries that's running behind it, and then depending on the containers and all of that, they are able to tap into it. Another thing I want to call out here is the Living Atlas. That's the services that we publish with the various data that is available, and a exceptionally valuable resource that a lot of our customers rely on. So that forms the foundation of our system, and based on that, we are able to provide all these different capabilities within ArcGIS, the collective ecosystem. With that, let me hand over to Kelly.
All right, so I think that gives you kind of an overview of the questions to start asking when you're thinking about, which software to use and the capabilities that are available. So we kind of broke it down into a simple workflow. Obviously, all the things that Jay just talked about are considerations, but this is kind of just how we simplistically broke it down. So again, you look at that workflow first, and then the capabilities will kind of follow that. So the first question you can start asking is, do your users need user-specific content? Are they logging into your product, and does each user need access to their data and different data sets than the other users within that app? If the answer is yes, then that's where you kind of would lean more towards our SaaS and software option. But if they don't need user-specific data sources, then you could look at, okay, do they just need simple location services? Do they just need a base map? Do they just need a geocoding? If they do, then that's a great option to go maybe towards our PaaS. And if not, then you can go back to that Esri SaaS and software. So this is kind of just a simple way for, obviously there's more considerations, but it's kind of just a nice workflow to kind of start here and see where you go in that Venn diagram. And then we look at the capabilities, right? So, this isn't an exhaustive list. This is just a few that we were kind of thinking of and bringing it down of when you would use PaaS versus SaaS and software. So again, you're kind of looking at data, the public data, private layers, whether you need location services, premium content coming from Living Atlas or our geo-enrichment API, editing data, managing content and apps. So this is, again, not an exhaustive list, but things to kind of help you get started of, if you're looking more towards using advanced capabilities, working with raster real-time content, you're going to want to start kind of maybe looking into SaaS and software versus using PaaS. And then we look at those business considerations. So, with Esri PaaS, again, ArcGIS platform, this is where you're incorporating those simple location services into your app. So maybe you just, again, need a base map. Maybe you just need a routing service in your app. ArcGIS platform allows you to build custom applications. So here you don't have access to Esri's suite of applications. You wouldn't have Experience Builder or any of those. So this is if you're really developer-centric and you have a team of developers that are building an app rather than just using a low-code, no-code option. And kind of looking, as Jay said earlier, who are the customers that you're selling to? Are they existing Esri customers? Do they already have the Esri SaaS or software infrastructure? Or are they net new customers that just need to go into your app and have access to some location services? And then we look at SaaS and software. Again, these are more of the advanced workflows. So you might be working with real-time data or large imagery data sets. This would target both new and existing customers, as well as can be either configurable apps, low code, no code, or they could be custom applications. So these are kind of some of those business considerations. And then, if your business development team is wanting to kind of go into markets and sell with Esri, that would be where we would want that SaaS and software, because this is kind of targeting those GIS that need, kind of a full stack GIS to be able to implement. So let's talk about each of the PaaS, SaaS, and software and kind of break it down. So starting with PaaS, we've kind of mentioned this location services, and this is really what we're talking about when we mention location services. So we kind of broke it down into the content and the capabilities. So when we look at content, this is base maps, this is demographics, our geo-enrichment API, a new places service that we have that has POI data. So this has over 1,000 categories that you can bring in either to your base map or as a service itself. And then data hosting, so being able to host vector data within your custom application. And then we look at those capabilities. So this is, obviously the visualization within a map, geocoding and geosearch, routing and directions, and then of course our robust spatial analytic tools. And then all of these can be deployed, web, desktop, mobile. As Jay said, it's kind of, it's the same capabilities across a platform. And then, supporting your workflows both online and offline. So looking at some of those technical considerations, again, when we look at capabilities, if you're going to use Esri PaaS, it's really targeting those location services. So, I just need to be able to see dots on a map, or I just need to have a geocoding capability in my app. Data, this is really targeting towards vector data. So you can do both feature layers and tile layers. And then looking at access control. So a big topic that Jay and I often get pulled into with partners is authentication and security, because all of our services do require some level of authentication. And with ArcGIS platform, the way to control that access is through an app at the app level. So it's either API keys, which is that industry standard permanent access key, or application credentials, which is based on that OAuth 2 protocol. But these are both at the app level, so it's not having that user-specific service. And then when we look at apps, again, this is more of the developer-centric, so you're building custom applications using either the ArcGIS SDKs, or you're using open source or third-party libraries. And we put a list of kind of some of them that we support. And then looking at that business engagement with ArcGIS platform, this is really developing custom application, using our APIs and SDKs to build that, and then using the open source or third-party libraries. This is licensed using a developer subscription. So you can sign up for a free developer subscription, developers.arcgis.com, create an API key and get up in seconds. And then the business considerations with that is, really you're expanding to new customers. You're going after customers that maybe don't have a GIS. And what's nice about ArcGIS Platform is by default, it does have that commercial license built into it. So there's no additional agreement that you need to do with Esri. You can quickly plug that into your app and go sell it, within a day. Here's just a basic architecture and kind of shows the business model of using ArcGIS Platform. So, you're building with either our web or mobile SDKs and then authenticating with either that API key or that application credential, that app login. So here, it's really at the app level, so any user can access, and you as the developer would be the one to manage that API key and that access control. So within kind of your developer console, within developers.arcgis.com, you can manage that, you can scope it to only consume specific services. And then the business model here with ArcGIS Platform, it's a pay-as-you-go consumption-based model. So what's nice about that is if you use 1 geocode a month, you're paying for 1 geocode. If you use 1 million geocodes, you're paying for 1 million geocodes. So it's just that consumption basis. We do have a very generous free tier, a lot of free services that you can use that does reset monthly. So just to kind of summarize what we talked about with Esri PaaS, again, this is leveraging location services when you're within your app, kind of just using those simple mapping and spatial capabilities. It's using that consumption-based prices model with that free tier, and then kind of looking at that technical considerations. This is where you need those location services. You might need some data hosting with vector content. You're looking at more developing using our SDKs versus doing a configuration, and then just kind of calling out that like identity, the infrastructure, and configurable apps would not be available with ArcGIS Platform. Right, so diving into Esri SaaS, so this is ArcGIS Online. Here's kind of an overview of everything that you can get within ArcGIS Online, from apps to capabilities, extensions, products that it may connect with, content. I think, a big key thing here is that, with ArcGIS Platform, it's just those location services, you're kind of doing custom development, whereas here you can see the list of apps that you have available. So these are all the low-code, no-code options that you can quickly get up and running, as well as some of those extensions, those more advanced capabilities. So looking at ArcGIS Velocity, which is that real-time data, ArcGIS Image for ArcGIS Online, which is being able to process and manage imagery data and run raster analytics. So there's a lot here that you would get, that regional hosting that's currently not available on platform, but is coming in the future. So looking at the technical considerations, when you're looking at capabilities, this is where you maybe need more of a geospatial system as a software as a service, right? You need location services, you might need a base map and geocoding, but you also kind of need that fundamental GIS. The data, again, vector data, but then you also have big data, you have imagery data, you have real-time data. So there's a variety of different data sources that you are able to leverage within ArcGIS Online. We do have regional hosting and also the premium feature data store for maybe more performance. When we look at access control, so now instead of the app ID, we're looking at those user-specific resources through our user authentication, or you might have heard this in the past referred to as ArcGIS Identity. So those are those named users, if you're familiar with like our creators, our editors, mobile workers, viewers. So you can give them a user type, you can give them a role, so maybe they're a creator and the admin, or maybe they're a creator and a publisher, or they have a custom role. And then you can also really monitor those privileges of what they can do and what they have access to. In terms of building apps, you can use any of the out-of-the-box apps that comes with ArcGIS Online, so you might be able to use Experience Builder, or dashboards, or story maps. You can create new templates. And then you can also use ArcGIS Experience Builder Developer Edition. So this is where you'd be able to kind of download that, deploy it within your own infrastructure, and have maybe a little more customization than what's available out of the box. But you can also build your own. So you can still use the ArcGIS supported SDKs to build custom applications, and then use that user authentication to access content and resources from ArcGIS Online. Business considerations. So, Jay and I work with a lot of partners, and so we kind of break it down into these 4 patterns that you see on the right. So for extend and services, this is really where you're building on top of a customer's existing infrastructure. So you're not as the developer, you're not the one hosting it. You would be leveraging the customer's ArcGIS. And then we talk about kind of this embed in content. So you're either embedding geospatial capabilities into your product, or you're just delivering content to Esri customers. And this is where you would kind of sublicense those ArcGIS capabilities. So when we look at kind of building on top of a customer's ArcGIS from an engagement pattern, this is where you are leveraging those geospatial capabilities, but again, it's coming from the customer's ArcGIS. Whereas when you're sublicense, this is what we call solution delivery and content delivery, and this requires an additional agreement with Esri as a customer or a partner. And then you can also help manage customers' ArcGIS. So as a services engagement, you guys be doing managed services. They could have their ArcGIS and then provide you a user type as a contractor to be able to come in and help manage maybe their data or get them up and running with apps. From a business consideration, so with an extend and services, we really look at kind of co-selling with Esri and targeting existing customers versus when we look at kind of sublicense, that's going after net new customers. Looking at the conceptual architecture, so here this is using a customer's ArcGIS Online. You're building either desktop, web, mobile applications, and then you're using that user type to authenticate. So it's either a user type coming from the customer's ArcGIS or you as a partner or developer being able to host that ArcGIS and then sublicense to the customer. And then, this is where you're embedding and then sublicensing it, so kind of similar. So, just to call out here, your solution kind of sits outside of ArcGIS, and then they're using that user type to bring in their ArcGIS Online capabilities, whereas here you're packaging it into one solution and then sublicensing using that user type. And we do have the option for partners to have a multi-tenant infrastructure so that you don't have to have multiple organizations to manage that. And then, so that was more on the solution delivery side. This is looking at content delivery. So here, you as a developer partner can have your content, and then you're getting an ArcGIS Online to kind of sublicense and host that data and connect it using, whether it's just, using the data store, using ArcGIS Image or Velocity. And then putting that data into what we call ArcGIS Ready content, which basically just means it's a feature service or it's an imagery service that's in the format ready to consume in a customer's ArcGIS. So then you're delivering it to them via either ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise. So just to recap, ArcGIS Online really offers those location services as well as additional capabilities using a lot of those out-of-the-box applications, real-time indoors, and then building with those advanced capabilities. It's priced by number of users, and then there's also those service credits that you might consume for data storage or if you're running some analytics or geocoding. So, again, the technical considerations, 2D, 3D, real-time imagery indoors, and then applying that user-based access. With that, I'll let Jay talk about desktop and software.
Right. As Kelly was saying, use ArcGIS platform for location services, simple workflows, point solutions, right? Like when you want to build where the user specific information is not required. But if you need that, then and more capabilities right now, or real time, the imagery, some of the advanced capabilities go with ArcGIS SaaS, right? Esri SaaS, that's ArcGIS Online. If those doesn't suffice, you want to do a focused solution or focused offerings for different user persona, or you have some business requirements outside of that, you use the server software, right? In server software, we have the desktop software and the enterprise software. So let's start with the desktop software. Desktop ArcGIS Pro, I don't have to say much about it. This is our flagship desktop product. That's for the last 5-6 years or maybe more. It's been the premier product that we are coming out with. Our ArcGIS previous desktop product, ArcMap, it's in mature support now. So it's, if you haven't moved or any of your customers haven't moved, please help them to move. In ArcGIS Pro, the consideration is to create it can do like the most advanced geospatial workflow you can imagine. You can do with ArcGIS Pro. You can talk to a bunch of data, and this morning we saw can even talk to some custom data. The latest supported data type is the video files, right? You can there is a whole tier of data that you can support by out of the box from ArcGIS Pro. And ArcGIS Pro is licensed per user, every user have a seat or a license for to use it. In ArcGIS Pro, you can actually, it comes with a ton of capabilities, ton of tools with it already, right? But you can also customize it. Jim McKinney was talking about these options this morning in the plenary, right? So you can create an add-in to extend the capability. You can create a custom user experience. You can kind of connect to custom data sources, and you can create a headless, a batch command line program that can be scheduled to run. These are all possible using the ArcGIS Pro SDK. Typically, with ArcGIS Pro, any Esri customers you are working with, they already have Pro. You are helping them to expand capabilities or to create some custom workflows with Pro. So when you are helping with Pro, you have access to all Esri customers. You are kind of co-selling with our sales team, and you are working against the customers ArcGIS customer licensed Pro. This is I didn't know how to do an architecture diagram for you because Pro is a standalone application for you, but so I wanted to kind of put it in a way that using Pro, you can create add-ins, you can create geoprocessing tools, right? Pro do using Model Builder, you can create custom geoprocessing tools, which you can actually publish as web tools in ArcGIS Enterprise as well, right? But in Pro, there is this additional option. All these geoprocessing tools, they have a Python library or a wrapper around it, which we call ArcPy. You can use that ArcPy base and create custom scripts or custom workflows, which can be exceptionally powerful to your customers, right? So you as a developer can create all of these for your customers. To summarize, for ArcGIS Pro, right, you can do a lot of advanced capabilities. Anything with geospatial, ArcGIS Pro can work with it. It even have the R library extension, where you can connect with your R processes, and it can be used for visualizing, editing, analyzing, all those kind of workflows, and also to create some of those data that you work with, share it with through ArcGIS Online or Enterprise. And you use ArcGIS Pro SDK to customize ArcGIS Pro, expand the capability. While there, and add in that, a lot of our partners we work with, partners typically have their own data, right? When they have their own data, they want, it may be in a format that is not typically supported in Pro, and these guys want to give secure access to their data, which is probably in an API, accessing through API. So what they do is they write an add-in, ArcGIS Pro add-in, which can connect securely to their data, and when they give the add-in to the customer, they just plug into ArcGIS Pro, and now the partner's data becomes a regular feature layer or an image layer that comes from some other source. When the customer doesn't necessarily have to know the nuances, it's all controlled by the partners. It's a common workflow that we see in the partnering world. So now moving on to the server software, or what we call the ArcGIS Enterprise. ArcGIS Enterprise, I don't have to say anything more about it, but like, it's the most advanced server technology we have. Like, it can be run on Windows, Linux, or recently Kubernetes. You saw some of those advanced capabilities of Kubernetes or advantages of Kubernetes-based deployments this morning, right? And it can be used in a variety of what we call server roles. Right now, I will get to that in a moment as well. So that's different capabilities in ArcGIS server technology. We bring that together through ArcGIS Enterprise. It can work with a whole lot of data, and through a new capability called custom data feeds, it can work with data that is not traditionally supported by out of the box. You can kind of create a connector that can tap into a different external source of data, plug that in as an ArcGIS service for you. In ArcGIS Enterprise, the access control is through user authentication, and for every user, you have privileges. They have roles and privileges on what they can see and what they can do with the data. Right? And very similar to ArcGIS Online, it comes with a bunch of Esri apps. You can create templates, or you can use the Experience Builder Developer Edition to create custom application. And same, using Maps SDK, you can create all kind of custom applications that have a well-defined user interface and user experience for your customers. What is different in ArcGIS Enterprise from ArcGIS Online is you can extend the capabilities of ArcGIS Enterprise using the SOE or SOIs. You saw a wonderful demo of that by Shreyas this morning, where he was using the SOI capability to intercept a request and then kind of work with an external CRM system. So these are all the additional capabilities that Enterprise can offer. Another thing that you want to kind of look at is some of the server capabilities that are used by that require some advanced workflows. In Esri, we use our enterprise geodatabase, we use versioning, right? In the newer version, newer offerings, we moved from what we used to call as traditional versioning to branch versioning. So that is the new way of versioning. Data versioning is happening in enterprise geodatabase. So based on that, all these new capabilities, the utility network and roads and highways, pipeline referencing system, right? All of that is available only to the server technology, right? And you have you can work with the knowledge graph, custom routing, indoor routing. So in ArcGIS Online, you can do indoor capabilities, but you cannot do custom routing in online, so you'll have to have a server technology. So this is where we were kind of saying earlier, think about the capabilities, then kind of our workflow leads to capabilities, which leads to the product. And in many scenarios, right, you have your own sources of data. If you want to work with any of these sources of data, you'll have to have a server technology, whether it's a relational database or an enterprise geodatabase. Oh, this is something I'd like to call out every single time I'm in the slide is, I learned about this only maybe 3 or 4 years back, that a relational database doesn't have to be an enterprise geodatabase for ArcGIS to work with it, right? You can work with a traditional relational database, a supported SQL Server or Postgres, Oracle, HANA. Any of that, you can connect to it even without enabling enterprise geodatabase in there. We can use native data types, the spatial data types there, publish that as a map or a feature service, and we can still work with that. I thought I knew how it worked, but I learned that about a few years back, so I like to call that out. So it's not just the traditional databases, cloud data warehouse, right? Or cloud stores, Apache Spark. If you have millions of or crazy amount of big data that is harvested behind an Apache Spark, we can work with that, a graph database or using custom data feed, any data source of your choice. So those are some of the capabilities. Now, kind of looking at that from a business perspective, right? It's very similar to what Kelly was talking with ArcGIS Online. When you work with the customer's ArcGIS, we call that as an extent. So you build a solution that works side by side to a customer's ArcGIS. That's what we call as an extent. It's not actually extending the capability. It's kind of trying to say that you are working with a customer's ArcGIS or a customer licensed ArcGIS. You can take ArcGIS Enterprise and sub-license it and put it inside your offering. The customer doesn't necessarily know that you are using ArcGIS Enterprise, but you are powering your geospatial workflows using ArcGIS Enterprise. You can do that to build solutions or using content delivery. We'll get to that in a minute. Then you can help customers install their ArcGIS in an efficient manner. That's not everybody knows how to. A lot of people know how to install and configure ArcGIS Enterprise, but not everybody knows how to install and configure ArcGIS Enterprise in a reliable way, right? In an efficient way. They need help. A lot of our Esri partners, they do the services engagement. I actually made a living like that up until a few years before I joined Esri. So business considerations, if you're doing the extend or services, you have access to all Esri customers, right? You can work with all of them. If you are kind of embedding ArcGIS or you're doing content delivery, you're kind of embedding ArcGIS, you're sub-licensing, right? You're building a solution that's typically to net new customers. And if you're doing content delivery, you are actually sub-licensing ArcGIS to deliver data to Esri customers, right? So let's start with the extend pattern. In extend pattern, you have a solution. It could be the CRM system, ERP system, or a simple application, but you are working with customers' ArcGIS. You leverage the capabilities using the customer systems or the ArcGIS identity in customer's environment. And when you embed, that's putting ArcGIS inside your solution, you are hosting ArcGIS, right? You are hosting it in your environment, and you basically are getting the sub-licensing ArcGIS to deliver that capability, right? Again, you use the user authentication to access the capabilities. And for partners on focused solutions, we allow partners to do a multi-tenant. Basically, what that means, you may have an ArcGIS Enterprise behind the scenes, and then you can have multiple customer organizations, right, to work with the same infrastructure, right? The very focused workflows, we support that, but that's only for partners. And where we see customers using ArcGIS to deliver data to where we see users sub-licensing ArcGIS Enterprise to deliver data to Esri customers is what they do is they take ArcGIS. Let me rephrase this. So customers need access to certain type of data. Partners are the source of that data. We have partners who kind of are into the business of delivering threat alerts to customers, right? Like, it could be weather alert, it could be like, some other kind of threats to a focused area. Like, what they do is they take ArcGIS, connect to their system behind the scenes, like, and publish that data as an ArcGIS service, whether it could be vector data, it could be raster data, like any of those services. You publish that, and once you have the service, you share that service with a customer. When customers, register, ArcGIS Enterprise, you share it through by registering the service. If I am a partner, I host this data and I publish it as a service and register it with the customer can access that data as any other data layer for them. So for them, it's a seamless user experience. It's exceptionally powerful, and from a partner or whoever is hosting ArcGIS to deliver this data, they're able to scale and reach multiple customers at the same time. And whenever your contract with the end user, the customer ends, you can kind of disable the access, and they don't have access to your data anymore, right? You own the data. Yeah. So to summarize that, how enterprise, the server software is used, it can be used, it is licensed by the user, and in server technology, we license it by the cores as well. You can deploy that in Windows, Linux, and Kubernetes, and you can publish the geoprocessing tool as web tools, and we have seen partners who use that, and you can work with supported data sources, or you can kind of connect to your own custom data sources. All right, with that, you want to summarize?
And I just want to make the comment too, it's like we kind of talked about, the PaaS, SaaS software, but it's not always one or the other. It's an or story, not an and story. So, there's many times you might be using ArcGIS Enterprise, but you're connecting to ArcGIS Online for geocoding, or you might be pulling in Living Atlas data, or maybe you have a solution that uses ArcGIS Online, and you use a customer's identity to authenticate, but maybe you need an out-of-the-box experience, so you use ArcGIS Platform to kind of provide that out-of-the-box experience, and then users can sign in and bring their own content or their own web map. So keep that in mind, that it's not always one or the other. It might be kind of a combination of these softwares. So just to kind of summarize everything that we just talked about, in terms of business, with ArcGIS Platform, again, remember this is bringing in those simple location services, building custom applications. You're going after customers that may not be existing Esri customers. They're net new. You're going into a different focus market. And it's really that developer-centric product. Then looking at SaaS and software, this is when you're getting maybe into more advanced workflows. You're getting into, powerful geospatial capabilities. You're getting into indoors, utility network, parcel fabric. This is targeting both new and existing customers. And then, really our sales teams love to go to market with customers that are kind of co-selling with us. They're providing services or solutions that work with the customer's ArcGIS, so they can kind of pull you alongside their engagements. Or you could sell it on your own. You could sell it on ArcGIS Marketplace. And then, with SaaS and software, you have the option to do developer-centric, or you have the option to use those no-code, low-code options. And I already kind of made the point, but it's a combination of PaaS, SaaS, or software. It's not always one or the other. As Jay mentioned, really start with the workflow, figure out what the capabilities you are, and then the technology follows. And then, just thinking kind of around the technical and the business, thinking about whether you want to develop, whether you want to configure, whether you need to host yourself, whether you want to use, maybe PaaS or SaaS that has that infrastructure available to you. And then how do you want to sell it? Are you going into customers that don't know what GIS is, or are you going after, customers that are heavily using a GIS or, need a GIS system? So with that, I think we have about 15 minutes. So if we have any questions, and I think, Jay and I work with partners a lot. So if you have any ideas or you want to talk to us, we're open to connecting with you and really just talking through your workflow. Yep.
Consideration of sub-licensing and ArcGIS Enterprise to the customers. How do you price that?
Typically,
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, yeah, sorry. The question was, what are the pricing models with sub-licensing ArcGIS? So typically, it's either a per-user number of cores or like a revenue share, but it kind of depends whether it's solution, services, content, all of that. But yeah, that's typically how we price it, is like a per-user or like a rev share of some sort.
And also, what kind of capabilities you leverage, right? Is it just the ArcGIS server only, or do you need geo event? Do you need all those different capabilities? What all are you leveraging? It all kind of comes into consideration. So we work with, if you have a requirement, you come to us. We work with you to understand that, and we kind of put it in a structure. Then we go to a licensing team where they kind of explore all those options with you.
There is options available for non-partners too, so it's kind of a spectrum based, again, on those capabilities. So ArcGIS Platform has that license built into it, so that requires nothing. So, whether you're a partner or developer, you can use ArcGIS Platform. We have some other programs that are available for non-partners too, so it kind of depends, again, on the capabilities. But I would say like basic capabilities maybe expands, but when you're getting more into those advanced capabilities, that's when it requires the partnership.
Actually, I have two questions. Number one, just for clarification, when we are talking about PaaS, we are talking about the custom application development using the SDKs without any access, let's say, external access to ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise. Correct?
Not necessarily. So the question was, when we're talking about ArcGIS, or when we're talking about PaaS, are we talking about custom applications with the SDKs and then connecting? So when we're talking about PaaS, we're talking about ArcGIS Platform. So that's really where you're looking at using that API key with that developer account to access those location services. If you're using the Maps SDKs to build a custom application, but then you're using ArcGIS Online to power that, that's when we're talking about SaaS. So it still can be a custom application using the SDKs. It just depends what license it's coming from, whether it's that developer account, the online account, or enterprise or pro.
Okay, to make it clear, because when you are saying ArcGIS Platform, ArcGIS Online is ArcGIS Platform. Okay, so in order to make it clear, ArcGIS Platform is that whatever you access through the EDN or not.
No, ArcGIS Platform and ArcGIS Online are separate products. So ArcGIS Platform it is a little confusing right now because when you log into the developer account, it looks very similar when it's online and platform, but there's a few additional capabilities with ArcGIS Platform that you get when you log in versus with ArcGIS Online. We do have on the roadmap later this year to kind of break it out into two separate systems, but
they are essentially two different products. The way we have the user interface and user experience today, as Kelly said, it could be a little confusing. We are kind of working on to make it very clear that where platform ends, where online starts, right? So once that is in place, you will. I think some of the confusion may go away. But if your question earlier was if you do something in platform, can you leverage capabilities from online? That is no. They are two independent products.
So if you are open my browser and say ArcGIS Platform, what do you open?
so you'd go to developers. So if you're going to ArcGIS Platform, what do you open? You'd go to the developers.arcgis.com and sign in with a free developer account.
Yeah, so it is the EDN.
It's the what, sorry?
EDN.
A developer network. Yes.
Yeah.
So you access to the EDN. You don't have something like ArcGIS Online to say that this is ArcGIS Platform.
Correct.
Not today. Yeah, that's coming later this year. Yep.
Question number two. In the case of government agencies who provide public free services, If a company, either it's private or an individual, and he wants to build an application that consumes the data or the services that are offered publicly and free, are these need to be licensed?
Yeah, if it's a local government that's providing free data to the community or something, that as long as it requires that agreement when it's revenue generating. So if they're just providing it for free for community engagement, community awareness, that doesn't require an additional license because it's just public data that anyone can access.
Let's say the startup or the individual, they are generating money from it. They are consuming public services to provide added value services through their, let's say, application, either it's web or mobile, and he is generating money. Is the application is to be licensed?
So I think I'm not quite sure I understood. So the customer made a public application, say like for say the John Hopkins dashboard, that was a public. Everybody in the world were looking at the COVID dashboards. You are saying like something like that. If somebody take that dashboard and make another application out of it, is that?
No, let's say that you have the open data portal. This is the open data portal.
Okay.
It's available from government data. It is available freely. Anyone can access it.
Mm-hmm.
And their licenses is saying that you are free to use it whatever you are doing.
Okay.
Now, a company came and built a mobile application that requires, for example, a user to pay subscription to access the data that are accessed openly. Is this application will need to be sub-licensed?
What kind of mobile technology are you using that Esri's Maps SDK is used to build the application? So if it's not using an Esri product and you are using an open data, there is no Esri in that picture. If you are using Esri-based maps, if you are using Esri capabilities, then you have to license it. But if you are using all open data, if it's not using Esri technology, then
Let's say that you have the idea.
Accessing the data that is open, but I have the license of the app doesn't matter. You just asked about accessing the data that is offered free.
No, no.
yeah. No.
So I think the question is here is you have an application, you're using maybe some geospatial capabilities, but you're also accessing that free data.
Yes.
So you have to license whatever those geospatial capabilities are. That's the part, because it's revenue generating, that you would have to license. The data is just an additional source that you're pulling in, that license coming from the customer with the open data. It's those capabilities within the app. So if you're accessing base maps, it needs to be coming from platform, or it needs to be coming from a user's identity. And that's where it would require, because it's revenue generating, an additional agreement.
Okay, this is the case if he is using, let's say, Esri SDK.
Mm-hmm.
So he needs to have a developer subscription, let's say, or he needs to license that application.
Yep, he would need to use a customer's ArcGIS or have an OEM agreement with us to sub-license that. So it just depends on the capabilities that they're using and how they want to provide that, whether they want to do like app authentication or user authentication, and whether they want to use platform or SaaS or software. But there would need to be, because there's geospatial capabilities being used from Esri, there would be some, and it's revenue generating, there would be some license that's required.
So let's do this. I think we didn't fully answer your question. You seem still confused. Let's take it offline. Like now, if you have other questions, let's answer that, and we can address your question. Absolutely.
Computing data, you have the data, and they just read something, like GeoJSON, for example. No,
Yeah, this is the app built on Esri components for the app can be independent, completely independent. You're talking about some data that is free, offered through maybe by municipal through ArcGIS Online or something. Is that the case? So
Part of the case like
the
this.
city may pay for, to offer the data free. You have an app that is not built on the SDK or anything, it's just a, open source app, and now this app is accessing some data and he's making money with this app.
You
And
use
it's
one of
this
the
way.
data.
Is
This
that
is one of the use cases, yes.
okay, so
This is one case, but the other use case, the other use case, there's no other question. Now, government agency, now as you know, if they have enterprise GIS, they have the two options. Either they can, let's say, grant a user access to the, let's say, the company through a username and password, or they can open the access freely, anyone can register. Okay? Now, if you want to use the capabilities available on the ArcGIS Enterprise, why do you need to license the ArcGIS SDK?
So if it is a public data that is provided by government to say, like, you know, if it's a government agency that says, okay, this is free for you to use, then our agreement is with the government entity. It's not with others. Correct. And if you are using our APIs and SDKs, right, the only requirement is that you are working with an ArcGIS on the other end, right? Otherwise, you are free to use, depending on what kind of capabilities what you are using, right? So if you are working with the government agency who is saying, okay, this is public, you can kind of do work with that. It's between you and the government agency. Our relationship is with the government agency, right? You know, so we have an agreement with them. So there could be different ways of licensing it or sub-licensing it. That is between us and our customer. You can build what you want based on your agreement with that.
Clear as mud.
No, we'll dig it offline.
Thank you.